Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the LD Aviation Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of business aviation, one expert conversation at a time. I'm your host, Lindsay Dyer, and today I'm thrilled to welcome someone who knows exactly what it takes to tell a great aviation story and get it seen by the right audience. So joining us is Michelle James, Integrated Media Specialist at AIN Publications. We all know them. They are one of the most respected names in aviation media. With a passion for helping brands build meaningful visibility and a background spanning both editorial and commercial strategy, Michelle brings a unique lens to the table. From crafting integrated campaigns to guiding companies through the maze of aviation media, she's all about helping you show up smartly and strategically. So today we're talking about what really goes on behind the scenes at AIN, from their legendary FBO survey, their AIN dinner, to their mission to be the first and last word in aviation. We'll explore how media partnerships work, how to pitch a story that actually gets picked up, and what operators can do on any budget to raise their profile in the industry. We'll also dig into the difference between independent journalism and pay to play, how to spot a trustworthy outlet, and why great photos still matter just as much as great copy. So whether you're a flight department trying to gain more exposure, or a vendor with a unique story, or just someone who wants to understand how aviation publications actually work, this episode is packed with tips, insights, and a few stories that you really don't want to miss. So let's get into it. Hi, Michelle, and thank you so much for coming with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. You and I have known each other for a couple of years. We've both been in the industry for a while, but I don't actually know, how did you get into aviation and end up in aviation media?
Like most people, I had a friend that was working in aviation. It wasn't something I set out to do, but I fell into it and really can't think of doing anything different for sure.
Right? It kind of gets in your blood once you get into aviation. It's hard to leave.
Yeah, that's very true. And I admit that over the years, so I've been in aviation for about 25 years, and there was a time where I was thinking, well, maybe I want to do something different in it, and I thought about it for a little bit, and I looked a little bit outside of aviation, but I, in my heart of hearts, couldn't ever leave it. So I'm here to stay.
That's so cool. I tried to leave, and I think I was out for a year, and I was like, no, I'm going to come back. I miss it too much. So what's your role currently? You are integrated media specialist there at AIM, but what does your typical work week look like?
So yeah, the title is a little bit hard to understand at times, but in essence, I work with clients. So I'm a client executive manager. I take care of everything related to AIN for the clients, and we're territory based. So I'm based on the West Coast, and I help clients come up with media campaigns. It might be events, it might be data, and sometimes I just service editorial questions and things like that for anything related to AIN, for business aviation, commercial aviation, as it related to AIN.
Wow, that's awesome. Awesome. So I think most anybody listening is going to know what AIN and seen them around. But can you give us kind of some background on AIN? I understand they're a family-owned company. Just tell us some more about AIN in general and their culture.
Sure. I think you described it as a family-owned company with a big footprint, which I absolutely love how that's presented. We're still a pretty small team. AIN is family-owned by Wilson Leach and his family. The last few years, Wilson is well known in the industry, and he's so wonderful to work forward with. But he has stepped back a little bit. So he brought on a new president a few years ago now, Ruben Campanier, who's really expanded the company and made it really, really exciting to work here even more than we did before. Of course, we're a media company at the heart, and we started with doing the MBAA convention news, I want to say about 52, 53 years ago. And what's really cool about that is I feel like anyone in the industry who has been a part of a big product launch or an airframe launch or has had a good amount of tenure in the industry has been covered by AIN. So one of my very favorite things I did when I joined AIN is I went to the offices in New Jersey, and at the time they had the archives, all the AIN archives in the attic of this little building. And when I had a free moment, I went up to the attic and I kind of searched through all of the big things that I had done as a marketing director over the years. Because previously to this, I was a marketing director for about 20 years. And I had worked so hard to be on the cover of AIN or page 1 or page 2. And so I went and I looked and I like, look, this was, I did this back in the day. I don't know, about 2005, something like this. And what's really cool about AIN is we get to be a part of all of that. We get to be a part of everyone's career and their announcements and everything they work really hard towards in our industry.
That's so cool. It's like kind of being along the journey with them, experiencing it with them. Mm-hmm. That's very cool. Okay, so you have. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I said I think everyone at AIN is really proud to be a part of that. The culture is we're really focused. We tend to be pretty productive people, high integrity. Everyone is I think really happy to work for AIN. It's one of the big reasons why I came from a previous employer.
That's so great, because I think it's really good to highlight that, especially now when a lot of times we have less faith in perhaps some of the publications or the messaging that's out there these days. And so cool that AIN has, so 52 years, that's been around for 52 years.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Like I said, it's hard to know who to trust these days, especially in media, right?
Yeah, it really is. So, okay, so you guys have some cool things that you're doing, and I want to hear a little bit more about the unique initiatives, specifically that FBO survey.
Sure. So we actually have conducted the FBO survey for 41 years, I believe. That it launched in 1981. So my math might be a little off there, but we've done it for a really long time. And in and by itself, it's been roughly the same format. We added there's 5 categories that our audience can rate FBOs on, and I think we added the customer service category in early 2000s, but for the remainder of the years that we conducted that survey, it's been conducted the same way. So it's really cool to have trend data and look at trends in the industry and things like that. We started it so that there would be a consistent and very transparent way of evaluating, FBO operations throughout the country and throughout the world. And what's unique about the FBO survey that we conduct is the respondents can rate the FBO just once. And the last rating is the ones that we pull out when we do the data collection part, where other surveys, a single individual could rate an FBO multiple times. And we just feel like the one rating per respondent, being able to track that respondent, just gives way to better data for everybody.
You bet. Yeah. And, you and I were talking before we started recording, about why this is important for the FBOs, but also for the pilots and the schedulers, dispatcher, anybody who's using that FBO. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe starting from the aspect of the FBO? Why is this important to them?
Well, I mean, the independent research surveys are always really important part of like any toolbox that marketers or people who have a marketing hat on, even if you have, if you're working for a small organization, you have many hats that you fulfill, and we're all very busy. But it's just one tool that you have in a toolbox that you can use as a marketing, and using a third party researcher like sponsored survey, whether it's AIN or any of the others. Actually, we're fortunate we have several in our industry. Is the bulk of the work is done on other people, and it's independently verified. I think there's a lot of stats out there. I think I just read one where 46% of B2B companies, of small business B2B companies, prefer to do business with someone that they trust. And so you think to yourself, how do I trust another business? Well, you ask your friends, right? You ask anyone but them. You might ask them, but marketing can only go so far with promoting yourself until someone wants to independently verify what they think or the perspective they have on your business to see if it aligns with their business. And using any type of independent review or research is so important because it's trusted more so than sometimes traditional advertising channels or other methods that we reach customers. And I think statistically too, they'll pay more. I think I read a stat recently where 54% will pay more to work with a trusted brand in a long-term relationship. So it's good for the bottom dollar. It's good to align your brand well with other brands that share the same value systems that you have too. So there's a lot of benefits there.
Really good point. Really good point. And now this year you did a dinner as well for the FBOs that were in the survey. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So proud to be part of the FBO Awards dinner and gala that we launched in March of 2025. It was part of a larger initiative. So part of just normal research surveys, AIN looked at ways that we can put people together in meaningful ways. And part of a big research initiative that we did several years ago was working more in the FBO market and seeing what we could do. And looking at the survey, we thought, after the end of the survey, we send out certificates for above and beyond winners, and we send out certificates for top 5 and 10%, things like that. But it kind of left us a little flat after looking at the research data. And so part of a larger strategic initiative that AIN has in serving this market is the launch of this dinner where the FBOs who won recognition could go on stage. And there's nothing better than seeing someone who works in customer service all dialed up on stage receiving an award for work well deserved. And just at the heart of it, it was just so lovely to be a part of that. And we're really happy that it had a good reception last year, and we're looking forward to next year as well. It's going to be hosted on the third day of the Scheduler and Dispatchers Conference next year in Cleveland.
Okay. That is so cool. I love it too. And I mean, I want to say there's like a lot of awards for pilots and flight attendants and maintenance, but I have not seen any for the FBO. So they're there, they're working hard for us. And I'm so glad that you guys are giving them recognition, especially those that go, like you said, above and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a hard job. It really is. I could never do it. I have a lot of respect for people who work in those positions. So it was a lot of fun. So, and we like partnering with companies that can bring, we work with a lot of award winners to ensure that they have the right people there, or maybe share that recognition at home as well. So we're trying to make it even better for next year. But yeah, it was a really great event.
So cool. Very cool. All right. And I know this is kind of what we were talking about before we started recording as well, but there you have a video all about the history of AIN. Is that correct?
Yes. We actually reached out to a lot of companies this year in anticipation of the dinner, of course, that was in March of 2025, and asked how they helped grow the industry. So we've got this really great video. Maybe we can put a link to it in the notes. And we also have it running social channels where it kind of sends a little chill down your spine just to think about how far our industry has come in such relatively a short amount of time, 40, 50 years. We look back at the pictures of what airplanes we were flying and how we were supporting them, and then looking at, what we're flying today and the vast network across the U.S., mainly because most of the traffic's in North America, but worldwide as well. It's such a really interesting thing to see. So we will love doing that again if those in the industry have some old historical photos they'd like to share. We'd love to do another video as well.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so cool. And we'll put the link down in the details on the bottom so people can see it. Sounds like a great video.
Yeah, we showed it at the dinner. So I like, you know how it is in marketing. You put a great video together and then you launch it, and then you think, okay, what else can I do with this? So I'd like to share it.
I put so much work.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Make it to be a multi-use thing. Yeah, okay. So speaking about that, let's talk a little bit more about kind of industry in general. And I first want to talk about the difference between the independent journalism and kind of like, almost say in quotations, like a pay to play content. Because I will admit, like recently, I figured out the difference between those two. So first of all, what is the difference between those two?
Sure. So, I mean, I guess in marketers, if you spend any time in the marketing world, you think first of all of earned media, and so earned media is what we refer to as our editorial media. So that's efforts that you put forward as a marketer or someone with a marketing hat on that day, to put out like a press release or news that you might have as a company that could be covered as nude or editorial news or editorial content. And then I think the terminology pay to play is, I think I don't know, it has a little bit of a life of its own. I think it's used in a negative connotation a lot of times. I mean, it does have its place, but if you think about it, any traditional advertising is a pay to play. But I think the terminology is used a little bit with an insinuation. So in our world, now that I'm on the media side of this, the editorial content, there's two types of media companies out there. I'm sure there's more, but for our purposes in aviation, there are companies like ours, like AIN, where we are an independent journalistic type company, and the company is supported by ad revenue. So our editors, we have a full editorial staff. They are 99% full-time employees by AIN. We don't contract with too many. We do on occasion, but for the most part, we like to have our editors independent and on our payroll. And they have a lot of latitude in what they cover, things they think are newsworthy, of interest, or stories, things like that. Of course, there's always like calendars they have to prescribe to and shows, and then the big events. But they write on what they think the audience is interested in, and so that is funded by ad revenue, and the ad revenue comes through advertisers in a multiple different kinds of way. There's traditional, of course, media. There's events, like the FBO awards and other events that AIN hosts and subscriptions, and some companies use merchandise and things like that. And there are the second type of company is companies who reach out to individuals to write their own content, and then of course they pay a certain fund, fee to put that into their magazine. And so the magazine or the publication, whether it's digital or print, is only filled with content that's being written by third parties and then paid to put into that publication. So I mean, just two different ways to think about it, two different tools you can have in your toolbox. But it's important to know the difference so that your brand is aligned purposefully with what you intended it to be. I think some of the nefarious things that we see in the market is maybe a media company approaching someone with a really great offer, and then come to find out there's a dollar sign attached to that article, and then you're surprised by it, and that's never good.
Yep, that's how I found out. Actually, I was like, "Oh, this sounds like a really cool opportunity," and then it was like, well, it's like $5,000 or $8,000, and I thought, oh. Because I did not understand that there was the two different kinds.
So I think it's just really important to know when you're thinking about reaching out for an article or paid media, whether it's advertising, it's just to know a little bit more about the publication that you're working with, so you understand. You don't have to know, you don't have to call them up and ask them what their business model is, but you should understand how that works and how their editorial team works, or so that you can ensure that you're protecting your own interests as well.
Did you tell me that the aviation industry is like one of the largest in the United States as far as like topics that we're covering and news?
Well, in the sorts, yeah, it's really interesting because aviation, as big as we are, as far as a publication perspective, we're considered a niche publication. And when we go to publication conferences, we focus our efforts, of course, in our participation in niche publications like ours, to grow and to learn. And we're actually I think we are the largest niche publication in terms of reach and revenue. you think about a niche publication, it's Avocado Times or like, the CAT publications or regional publications and things like that all run with a regional focus. And so we are a little bit unique in that we're pretty large and that our focus is worldwide. So it's unique to have a niche publication with a worldwide reach in that regard. Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty big.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, but you're right. Niche, but global. I mean, we fly everywhere. Each aircraft is built in different sections of the world, and very cool. Okay. So I kind of went on a tangent with that one, but so let me bring it back here. We were talking about the difference between pay to play, and those types of operators. So what if you're an operator or a vendor and you want to choose the right media partner for you? What types of questions should we be asking?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the first thing, there's a lot of things to consider, but if I could roll it up into kind of two takeaways, the first thing I would consider very highly is the audience of the publication. Because I think if you've been in the industry long enough, you kind of know who they are. There's like, kind of a big 3 or 2 or 3 or so. And then there are focus publications who are all really great. And I think understanding the audience numbers is really important. So look at their circulation, look at who they have in their audience, and also the engagement of the audience. So who they have in the audience needs to match who you are trying to reach. I think that seems pretty simple, but I think it's really easy to get caught up. Oh, I'm going to be in the largest publication I can be in because they have, this clout around them, which is really, really important to align your brand with as well. But also make sure that the target audience, whether it's operators or pilots or maintenance technicians or OEMs, just make sure that that's the right mix that you're looking for your messaging. I see a lot of kind of like messaging going after the wrong audience. Like, for instance, if you're talking about a low cost solution and you're putting that in front of someone who doesn't care about cost, that's obviously a mismatch. And then the second thing I'd look at as far as audience is engagement. Sometimes it's really easy for media publications to say they have, a certain audiences, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind with audience development. I don't think a lot of people talk about. You can look at things like, is the audience audited? There are independent auditors out there. One is the Alliance for Audited Media that, AIN partners with them, and we have our audience audited every year for AIN, and they can produce reports to ensure that the audience is who the publication says it is. And whenever things don't align, I try to be as empathetic as possible because it's a really hard job. And then also I call it the freshness of the audience. You want to make sure that the publication is turning over the audience and ensuring that, the name on the list is really the name and that name is still engaged. They're still opening, they're still interacting with your content in different types of ways. Because it can get stale really quickly and no one wants to spend, money on things that don't make sense. So cleaning data, making sure it's audited and the audience is engaged in the right audience. I think that's most important because everything else will fall into place, I think, after that.
Okay. And now, should publications be pretty open to sharing all that information?
Yeah, they should be. If they don't have it published on their website, they should be able to, if you we're a quick question, they should be able to provide that. And I would say most publications in our industry are really great. They include it as part of their media kit. I know we do as well. I think it's also been online or will be online as well, kind of like open source. And then you can kind of figure out, sometimes the cheapest thing isn't the best thing, and sometimes it is, but you kind of get what you pay for, as we know. And you want to make sure your brand is aligned with, if your logo is next to another company's logo, you want to make sure that it's aligned with your business values. My extreme example of this is as a marketer way back in the day. I was talking with some CEOs who would never buy, like, like when you go to NBAA or any other show, sometimes there's some clings that come to the floor, like you can project or have like little logo on the floor of the convention center, or you can have them in the bathroom, mirrors and stuff like that. And I worked with a CEO at one time that said, our brand will never be stepped on. And so we would never buy anything that people could step on. And he said, our brand will never be in the bathroom. So, those are definitely off limit sponsorships for that particular brand. And so if you don't have those boundaries set, I really suggest kind of setting those so that you can ensure if you've got a luxury brand, of course, you want to be aligned with every other thing that's luxury around you. For sure.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yep. Not on the floor. Oh, interesting. So, okay. So when we're talking about, we're interviewing with them, and their stories that either like AIN will pick up a story and help create the end product, or you can create your own story and offer it to other publications to see if they pick it up. But how do you really make like a great aviation story? What are some tips if we're out there trying to create those stories so that we can send them on their way?
Well, I'm pretty sure that almost everyone has a great story. They are just so close to it that perhaps they don't see it. I mean, maybe not, but I really do think that most people do, especially with FBOs. You have all kinds of interesting things happen all the time. And bringing those forward, it can be some work. I mean, it doesn't have to be. So I think there's some protocols that are common in the industry. There are, if you have a newsworthy item, you would want to create a press release and send those over to editors and different publications, AIN included, of course. But I know for some small companies, maybe you don't have someone dedicated to doing that, or you have different approval channels that can make it more difficult. Just think about different ways you might be able to approach it, and then develop a relationship with, a couple different publications to understand better how they might be able just to get a story from you that doesn't go through all those like standard protocols that lengthens the process. Because, for instance, at AIN, we've got really, really great editors, and they love great stories. They really do, from the bottom of their hearts. And so, back in the day, I worked in the avionics field, and I would call up Matt Thurber at AIN, and I'd say, I don't have time to write a press release, but we had this really great thing happen. We had a customer, it was AOG, and we fixed it, and you got to hear from this guy. And I would set up a call with like a lead engineer, and he would just have a 30-minute call, and it could turn into a great story. And now with AIN, sure, all over whether that becomes a great story or not depends on how much news is going on at the same day, and if the editor thinks it's newsworthy, but it doesn't, that's okay. So at AIN, it's okay to, reach out with just, hey, I didn't have time to formally do this, but write it in an email. I have this really great story, and then attach a photo. Of course, photos, as everyone knows, are so powerful. Our alerts, we even have the photo section at the bottom, and you can always send in like really interesting photos that you see. And that's just a really great way to elevate your company, show that you're active, and, have interesting things happening at your company.
That is so cool. So, okay, I'm going to ask, maybe this is not the right question, because I'm sure nobody who writes stories wants to hear this. But for those of us like me who maybe are not very good at writing stories in general, how bad is it to put some information into like an AI and try and get that to help me with my story, give me prompts? Or is it really easy to tell? Like when you guys have your editors, are they able to look at that and be like, oh man, AI just spit this out?
I think they are. I think they're astute enough to see that. But I do believe AI is a really great tool. I use it. Our editorial team does not use it for stories because of the proprietary nature. Like we wouldn't put, it's a big topic in media companies right now with AI and who owns that data. So anyone using AI, I always caution, make sure you are careful. Don't put anything in there that you don't want the world to know. because as soon as you put it into
Okay.
AI, it's open source, of course. But it's a
Sure.
really great tool. I use it all the time too. Actually, I have a funny story about this. I used it the other day to craft an email that was going to be a marketing email to several people. And then I happened
Mhm.
to see that an email from a competitor came through with the exact same wording, and I realized they had used the same AI prompt that I had written. I hadn't released mine yet, thankfully. So I think it is known if you're using the same kind of common prompts. So just be careful of that, maybe. And it didn't impact anything, but I was like, they're using AI for those emails.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Good to know. Really good to know. And that's, um, good to know for any of those small businesses who might be using AI as a help. Make sure that you're careful
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
what you're
start
putting
it,
in there. Okay.
use it, and then I would definitely adjust it so that it's you and your voice. But it's a great starting point, I think.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. Okay, so we talked about photos and how important those are, but I forgot to ask my one question about having what type of photos can we send? Like, do these have to be fancy camera digital photos?
Well,
How important are those visuals? I mean, does Canva work if we're doing that type of a visual instead of maybe a picture?
I love Canva. It's been such a great tool. No, honestly, I think digital photo, I don't think it has to be that fancy. It's got to be clear. It's got to tell the story. But I do remember, air quote, back in the day where when we went from fancy cameras to iPhone cameras, and there is a time and place where you need to have proper, photography gear and video gear, but the applications for that nowadays are really very, very niche. It's large format. If you're sponsoring the Sphere in Vegas, you need certain camera equipment, but for everyday press releases or just like I snapped a great photo, as long as you're using some common techniques, there's nothing wrong with submitting an iPhone photos. Actually, I think a lot of our editors are simply using their iPhones whenever they're doing feature stories, especially with digital content. And any iPhone can do, or similar, can do a really great photo that could be submitted. I think focusing on people, places are really important in things. So if you find it interesting, then likely our audience would find it interesting as well. But
Okay.
just put some thought into it, of course.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Sounds good. Well, okay. So if somebody, let's say even on my team, has a really great idea for a story, how do we reach out to a publication like AIN? Do we have to find a certain person? Is there like a main email address? Like, how does that work?
That's a great question. And it's likely going to be different with every publication because I know a few publications do like things just to go to editor at, publication name. Um,
Okay.
and it's really important to develop a relationship with the publication. So if you don't know, you could just follow up, even if it's like a sales rep like me, and say, "Hey, I want to submit a story. How do I do it?" And then they can guide you through the best ways of doing that. Here at AIN, I think sending them directly to the focal area. For instance, we have individuals who focus on FBOs. We have individuals who focus on avionics. We have individuals that have a focus area and, like feature flight type of things. And I think sending it to those individuals directly are going to get you a faster response, with the caveat that these folks get thousands of emails a day. So a little bit of patience goes a long way as well. There are people too wading through large inboxes. So um, yeah, I think having that relationship, and then if you don't hear back and it's unusual, a quick phone call doesn't hurt, and that's why developing a relationship is just so important. If you're working in FBOs, for instance, you can reach out to the FBO editor at your favorite publication and say, "Hey, I got this thing. What can I do?" I think that goes a long way. It's a small industry.
And okay, so I want to kind of highlight a little thing that AIN, you guys actually have a scheduler dispatcher kind of section person who deals with that type of story, right?
Yes, yeah, Kurt on our team. I probably won't. No, people can contact me directly if they'd like his direct email address. I do think it's in the front cover of our publication. It is available there as well. But yeah, Kurt Epstein is our focal area for anything related to FBOs. So he's a great resource.
That is so cool. So I think anybody, like most of the people listening to our podcast are going to be schedulers, dispatchers, and that type of stuff. So I'm just going to urge you guys, if you've got a story, send it over to them, because I think it'd be so cool if our kind of section of aviation is highlighted even more. So anyway,
Yeah,
go reach out to Kurt.
He's pretty dialed into the FBOs, and I have absolutely had conversations with him where I've said, "Hey, I talked to so and so at this FBO in, like, say, Texas," and he was like, "Oh man, I haven't talked to them in a really long time. What do they have going on?" And you never want an editor to say, "Man, I haven't talked to them in a really long time." So, a little bit of outreach one way.
Okay, so that's kind of going to bring me to my next question, because you're talking about the relationships and the outreach perhaps from the business over to the publication, and that would be like in my instance. So I would reach out to the publications and create that relationship, which is essentially free. But what other advice might you have for smaller operators like LDA that we're looking to build that media presence, but we just don't have a huge budget for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's different. Of course, again, it depends type of question, and I think because every business has unique challenges, and but there's a lot. I think there's a lot of options out there, and one of my favorite things to do is I worked in marketing for so long doing my own campaigns. I love doing campaigns for other people now, and I get a really great insight into how a wide variety of businesses are approaching their marketing, so I can lend myself to thinking through how your business might approach it. And it doesn't always require a big budget. Big budgets, big problems, right? I kid, love big budgets, but we all do.
Yeah.
But when our budget is not a big budget and it's a little budget, you need to start somewhere. I love simplicity. I like kind of looking around at your strengths and building upon those, and really not concerning yourself with areas that would take too many resources to develop. So, if you've got a really strong social presence, you might use, like, AIN we have social products, we have video products. I know a lot of other companies do some packages if you want thought leadership. And so you can kind of put a bunch of different things together. Nothing wrong with some brand awareness and digital. That's always very budget friendly, digital brand awareness, just to make sure that you're top of mind, combined with some earned media. You can make a really great campaign with some well-placed, you don't have to be on every month either, some well-placed placements, I guess I was going to say.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like, sorry, there's a bit of a lag. I keep talking over you, but it sounds like you choose wisely, basically.
Yeah, I mean, start simple. Be okay with just doing a one or two different things, and then I would definitely work with a partner, like someone like me, like a sales professional, or maybe you have an agency relationship that can just ensure that you know what you're buying and all the considerations, so that you feel confident about it. Or you're working with someone that you trust, that will stand by and ensure that they do right by you. I think that's really important.
Coming back to that relationship that you were talking about before, and because it takes a relationship for you to probably feel like you talked about before, the trust that person is going to represent you well in their publication or digital.
Yeah. And I think we know this because the nature of our business is, obviously an FBO, your customers, that's a very trusted relationship. It's a very service oriented relationship. And you should expect that from, everyone that you do business with as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're right. And, aligning yourself with the correct partners, I think that's great. Really great advice. What about some mistakes? mistakes do you see aviation businesses make when we are trying to get into the media and get published?
I think almost all the, I don't know, mistakes, if you want to call them, that I've seen are well-intentioned. I don't think they're out to, to be misaligned in any way. So I want to be careful with that. But I do think that business aviation, commercial aviation, private aviation, of course, is very niche as it relates to the broader marketing philosophy. So I think the biggest thing I see is really, really great marketers coming into our industry and applying benchmarks and traditional marketing philosophies in an industry that's slightly different than I think, that my favorite example, of course, we have a print publication, but the engagement with AIN's print magazine is ridiculously high. Like people read it all the time. And when I'm talking to somebody from a different industry or has traditional digital marketing experience, they just don't believe me. I'm like, no, it really does. I swear, it's not just because I'm selling it. It isn't. So I think the one thing is to talk to a lot of people and understand the differences that business aviation and our particular industry has against those industry benchmarks. Digital is really great, has a place. Events is really great, has its place. Print also has its place. So I think just knowing exactly how people work and again rely on those that have a tight relationship. I think one of the reasons why AIN has done so well is because the people at this company know the industry so well. So you lean on that experience. I love open-ended questions when I'm working with clients because they'll say, well, what do you think I should do? And I'm not shy. I will tell you what I think you could do. Whether you can do it is a whole thing. But I can put forth at least 2 or 3 ideas I've seen other people do that have worked really well. The other things that people do that haven't worked. And if I have a really great relationship with that client, we're able to talk through, okay, why didn't this work? Is it placement? Was it the audience? Was it the way that we approached it? Was it the messaging? And then we can adjust that and we all learn from it. And I think that's the best way that someone new kind of coming into the industry to try to avoid. I mean, we're all going to make mistakes, but if we can avoid some of the bigger ones, then we can move forward faster, right? And build our levels of sophistication a little bit faster because it's a trajectory, right? Like you start marketing in a simple and really easy way, find some success, and then you get more and more complicated, more sophisticated over time as you're reaching more and more objectives. That's kind of where you want to move towards with your marketing philosophy.
That totally makes sense. And I feel like you could apply that also to just in general aviation, and I'll even say scheduler, dispatcher. You've got people that have zero aviation industry experience, and they want to come in and treat it like the scheduling maybe just like a regular logistics type of job, and it's not. And you really have to know the industry. So, yeah, I really get that. So even in your sales, even in like our sales, I guess, part of the aviation industry, you really have to know aviation to be in sales. You have to know aviation to be in, just about any section. But that's not to say you can't learn it along the way. But you can't come in and just apply your other market knowledge into aviation and think it's going to work.
I mean, that being said, I think there's a lot of growth that we can apply from other industries. I talk to clients all the time who do study, if they're a luxury client, they're looking at their luxury brands to see what they can bring into the industry. And I think that's really important. But, I don't want to discount that because I think that's how we move forward as well. But I think just thinking more about, your objective and then leaning on those who've been in the industry because everyone has been in the industry for a really long time. I don't want to discourage anyone from joining us. It's a really great industry.
Right. You're right. Yep. Oh, that's very true. Okay, Michelle, let's talk to me a little bit about maybe young people coming into media in general. I'm assuming it's like a communications type of degree, but what would you say for maybe one of those people that might want to get into aviation as a specialty?
Well, that would be fantastic. I think I think aviation has a lot of benefits that you can spread across a lot of different industries. But I think anyone entering, especially if you're early career stage, I think there's a lot to offer. I have, I just absolutely love early career individuals. I've always enjoyed working with them, and even more so now that I'm a little bit on the other side of that. I think they bring a perspective that is sometimes disregarded and really needs to be embraced more by those who are more tenured in their positions. We see this a lot. We talk at AIN, some of our corporate aviation leadership events. We have roundtables where we talk about generational differences. And I absolutely love the conversations that happen at roundtables about generational differences, because it's usually amongst people who really want to try to understand working with the various generations that we have in the workplace. But the younger marketers I've worked with have just been nothing but fantastic. I love their approach to social because it's not something I do very well. I love their approach to video. I think they're very, very natural on camera. And I think that lends itself to the authenticity of marketing to businesses way more than some of the traditional methods that we learned, way back in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. So FBOs, I mean, you could really make a presence socially by just putting the right person in front of the camera and having a very natural engagement with audiences. And you could take that content and you can manipulate it in just a little bit of way for the right channel. So if you wanted to run a social post or something through a traditional media channel, you could just supplement that with some great words, maybe a story around it. There's a lot of potential, I think, for anyone interested in joining our industry and kind of making a mark in a different way. So I'd love to see that. Absolutely.
That'd be so cool. Yeah, the younger generation grew up on camera. They just videoed themselves and everybody, my kids will do that. I mean, they're 19 and they video everything, themselves included. They're just doing TikTok and stuff. So that's a great point. Well, awesome. Thank you, Michelle, for all the information today. Appreciate you taking some time to join us. And so, listeners, that brings us to the end of another episode of the LD Aviation Podcast. Again, I want to extend a big thank you to you, Michelle James, for joining us today and really giving us a behind-the-scenes look at AIN publications, the independent aviation media, the pay-to-play, really also how to strategically share your message in this very tight-knit industry. So thank you again for coming.
Lindsay, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love these. And I love being able to talk to people that, I've known for quite a while. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
So those again who are listening, please make sure to like the episode, share it, please. And if you have a topic or somebody that you would like to listen to on a podcast, please let us know. Thanks again. We're so glad you joined us for this episode of the LD Aviation Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, share, and follow. Your support helps us keep the conversation going and grow our amazing community.